You know that feeling where every chord change sounds the same, like you're playing on autopilot? You try switching up the rhythm or use a different strumming pattern, but it still sounds vanilla, like the music is missing you. And until you learn how to shape the moments between chords, you'll keep feeling stuck, like you're just stringing blocks together instead of writing real songs. This video shows you 5 simple ways to transform a basic chord change, A minor to C, into something expressive, textured, and uniquely yours. So your playing finally reflects your taste, your identity, and starts sounding like something that you'd be proud to perform. Most players change chords like flipping switches, but what if you could make each transition feel musical, like it belonged and not just filled a gap? Let's start by looking at 2 simple open chords. Notice the movement of my fingers here. These chords, A minor and C major, actually share 2 notes, C and E. As such, we only need to move a single finger to change chords. When I lift my ring finger, the A note moves to an open G note. This keeps the motion economical and lets the shared tones sustain through the transition, which is a great way to connect 2 chords. Bass notes can also improve the transition between chords. Take a look at this revised chord change. Walking up from A to B to C adds direction. Walking back down gives your return to A minor a clear purpose. By focusing on these shared tones and stepwise connections, your chord changes stop sounding like blocks and start sounding like music. That raises another question. Do you ever feel like your chords sound boring, even when they're technically correct? That's usually because there's no tension or movement inside them. So how do you add emotion without learning new chords? Well, it's actually really simple. Take a look at this revised version of our A minor to C sequence. By lifting my index finger on the A minor chord, we go from hearing a C note to an open B note. This single note difference brings us the drama of the A sus2 chord, which resolves nicely when C major is played after it. I then repeat the trick with a different finger, removing my ring finger to add an open G note to the A minor chord, which creates an A minor 7th. These ideas are great to use when hanging out on a single chord for a while. For example, see if you can spot what's going on with this C chord. Adding the F note with my pinky creates a C add 11 chord, whereas removing my middle finger allows the open D note to contribute to a C add 9. Small tweaks like sus and add chords add quick tension and release, making even static chords feel expressive. But what if the magic isn't in the chords themselves, but the space between them? Well, there's another way to make even basic shapes sing, without leaving first position. All you have to do is reach for a common guitar technique. See if you can notice it in the next example. Hammer-ons and pull-offs let your fretting hand do more of the talking. Try a hammer-on from open D to E on the D string whilst holding a C chord. It adds movement and personality. Or pull off on the G string during an A minor chord to momentarily imply an A minor 7. Embellishing your chord changes with hammer-ons, pull-offs and fills adds musicality and motion without needing new shapes. Despite this, do you feel like your chords still all sound the same? That's often because you're using the same shapes in the same spot every time. But what if you could change the emotional tone without changing the chord name? We'll have a look at this next example and think about how it differs to earlier demonstrations. These are full chords, just reduced to 3 essential notes. It gives a lighter, more open sound. We can take this concept and use it to open up the neck of the guitar. Have a look at this next version. This takes the same notes of the chords, but plays them higher up the neck. You can find these 3-note chords, called triads, all over the guitar. This gives you multiple options for where you play each chord in your progression. You can use it to create rising and falling feelings to the same chords, depending on where you voice them. If you want some help with finding these triads, I've put a useful website link in the description below. The last example also hinted at something which is massively underused by guitarists. Listen to the next set of chords to experience this. These are called inverted chords, which offer another subtle change. Playing A-E or C/G shifts the bass tone, which hints at motion and contrast without altering the harmony. This is because the chords have the same notes as the standard version. You just change which one is the lowest. Revoicing chords with partial shapes and inversions adds contrast without extra theory. But there's another problem. What if you think your chords aren't expressive enough? Maybe it's not what you play, it's how you play. This is where rhythm and dynamics are your emotional toolkit, but how do you use them? The next example will give you a flavour of what is possible. Switching from fingerpicking to aggressive strumming changes the emotional feel of the same chords. You can go from delicate to bold with just one change in approach. This is just one way of many ways to mix things up. Let's look at another one now. This rhythmic crunch is called palm muting and is a versatile technique for both acoustic and electric guitar. Palm muting your playing creates tension, then letting the chords ring out brings resolution. You could alternate between muted A minor and full C to build suspense and then release. And there's an even simpler idea which is underused by many guitarists. Even silence has impact. Try pausing for one beat before you hit that C chord. Suddenly it lands with drama. It doesn't need to be long, even a short gap creates space for contrast. Varying your strumming, dynamics and groove turns a basic A minor to C into an emotional performance. Each of the techniques we've seen adds flavour, but combining them is where real power lies. So what happens when you combine stepwise bass movement, tension, embellishments, voicing and rhythm? Well, the possibilities are endless, but see if you can pick out some of them in the next example. Do what you feel the song needs at that moment in time. Start with the simplest form of the chords and then add ideas until you are happy. You don't need complex theory to sound expressive, just a few subtle techniques layered together. Now that you know how to make a basic chord change feel dynamic and personal, what happens when you take those same chords and actually build a full song around them, even if you've never written one before? Watch this next video to learn 4 simple beginner-friendly steps to write your very first guitar song, with no theory required.